Welcome back to Dawn's Dirt Podcast. Today's conversation is a really meaningful one. I'm sitting down with Christie Green, author, landscape architect, hunter, and entrepreneur. And we go deep into something I think we've all lost in modern society, our relationship with food. In this episode, we talk about knowing where your food comes from, planting gardens right in your own backyard, hunting for food, and what it means to truly respect the land that feeds us. We talk about the importance of community, preparing food together, cooking together, and sitting down to eat together, and how food has always been a place where connection happens. Christie also shares about her books, her deep connection to the land, and how food, land, and culture are all woven together. We talk about respecting people who live, eat, and think differently than we do, and why that respect matters now more than ever. This is one of those conversations that slows you down and makes you think about how you're living, how you're eating, and how you're connected or disconnected from the food on your plate. Before we get started, if you enjoy these kinds of conversations, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, hitting that subscribe button really helps support the show and gets these conversations out to more people. So, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and where you're from and what you do? And start off with that, please.
My name is Christie Green, and I'm originally from Alaska. I grew up in Alaska, and I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I've been here for about 28 years, and the crux of all of my work, whether it's as a landscape architect or as an author or as a designer of clothing, everything is centered around food. So food for me is the catalyst for connection between people and also the way we connect to place. So all of my practices, whether it's growing food, hunting food, preparing and serving food, it's all about how do we connect.
Love that. I love that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I was a vegetable farmer for many, many years, and it's about the relationship with people. And so I love to hear you talk about that. Like when you're growing something or hunting something, it's about the community and the connections. So you describe hunting not just as food procurement, but as a ritual and communion. What does that actually look like in practice for you?
Well, it's the hunting practice itself is my own. I don't like the word spiritual at all. I think it's overused and has been diluted, but I guess that's the closest I can come to articulating like my practice. It's not just about going out and trying to find an animal and bring one home. It's actually this transformation that I feel when I'm in the field where I get to become animal myself, where I can sort of slough off all of the schedules and requirements and demands of being a mother, entrepreneur, being a person in the world, where I can just go immerse myself fully without filtering myself and be close with the animal. So that's always where it starts, a few days before the hunt, and then being immersed in their world for however many days, of course, depending on which hunt I have, which animal. And then the process, if I am fortunate enough to bring an animal home, an elk or a turkey or a deer or whatever, I really like it when people come and participate in the butchering, the skinning, the cutting, marveling at the bones, at the fascia, at how the body is put together, and what a miracle and how exquisitely beautiful that is. And then when we make food, when we make a meal from that, it's yet another extension, another form of coming together and also learning. A lot of people, as you know, have no idea, like how a carrot grows, that it's a biennial, or, how chard grows or anything, how to save seed. A lot of people don't know what actual meat looks like from the animal's body, because we're used to seeing that in the grocery store wrapped up in, styrofoam and plastic and all of that. It's like we've become not only accustomed to, but more comfortable with anonymous food. And I guess what I'm interested in is food that we're intimate with, not that's anonymous, something that we actually touch and feel and know where it came from and hopefully have some relationship with it.
I love that. I love that it's a whole process from start to finish. I love that it's not just putting something in your mouth, chewing it, swallowing it, and, doing the digestive things. I
Uh-huh.
love that it's bigger than that for you. I love that, like you were talked about with hunting, that it's going out and really like with nature and being thankful and grateful and, connection, and then the
Mhm.
education portion behind it. And some of my favorite things was when I went to a farmer's market, people like customers would come up and the kids would eat the tomatoes and they'd love them and they go, "Oh, I like tomatoes." And lots of my customers, they always said, um, they said, "My kids don't eat vegetables, but they eat your vegetables." And it's also because of the connection. Those kids could come up and shake the hands of the farmer, right? And so same thing with you is really making a full
Mhm.
relational experience out of it. And so
Mhm.
you were telling me earlier you do some workshops. So can you tell me a little bit about those?
Yeah, I mean, I used to do it more when I first started my business because so much of my business, my niche is around food and cultivating. And here, especially in New Mexico, we have high alkaline soil, low organic matter, not much moisture. So a lot of what I was teaching about was composting, how to make compost, and then how to build soil, which is so essential, especially when growing food. So I would teach about composting, and also here we do a lot of sunken beds because we want to capture water. And so it's like a way of catching water passively, surface water, rainwater. So a lot of it was also designing for the desert and designing for how to grow in zones 1, 2, 3 around the house, so that it's like, in my mind, it's like the lazy gardener. It's like working with nature and natural process, and also with how we actually live. To me, I think the most successful gardens are the ones we trip over coming, into the house from the car, the ones that are right outside the kitchen door. And so much of the time, people, when they're growing food, they'll sort of relegate the beds to the back 40 of the house as if it's the least attractive or least celebratory aspect of the landscape. And so my work is trying to change relationship to food, relationship to how we live with it, and actually reincorporating making food into our daily lives. It's not something separate or foreign. It's actually, how can we integrate that in a daily way? So a lot of it was, the horticultural part of it, and what heirloom crops grow well here. But it was also about valuing, how do we value food, and how do we value a life that includes making food, and making that ritual of food in our own daily lives. So it's about design, and so much of it, as you know, relationship to food. I mean, why to grow food is as important as how to grow food.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love hearing you say that you're using the spaces that you have. You're right. A lot of people, a lot of times, will put the garden in the back 40 and then they
Mhm.
forget about it. They don't go out to it. They don't, this and that. But I've been, involved with clients for a couple years now. And I'm like, use the space around your house. Like use your house to your advantage. And we're up north here. So if we've got a south-facing deck, use that warmth
Mhm.
to, grow your warm weather crops. And you said something about it very interesting, and I just learned something. So down, you're in grow zone 1, 2, no, 1, 2. So you're in warm.
We're in 5,
No,
actually, because 7,000 feet. So we have,
right.
our latitude is south, but our elevation is high. So we do have winters, and we're zone 5. Mhm.
Okay. So, but you've got hot and dry in the summer, right?
Hot and dry in the summer. Yep.
Yes. So I used to do a bed that went above,
Mhm.
and you do a bed that goes below. I
Mhm.
find that fascinating because
Yeah.
I had sometimes puddles between my beds,
Mhm.
and you want that water to flow into your bed.
We do. And we need to be building soil here that actually holds the water because, as I mentioned, our soil is highly erosive and low organic matter. So water either just
Yes.
um, pools on the top because it's compacted, or it sloughs off and runs off, and is not absorbed. So a lot of, especially if we're growing food, we want that to absorb and actually go down to the root zone. So yeah, and that was another thing.
Amazing.
A lot of people think, well, a raised rectangular bed is the only form to grow vegetables in. And actually, while that is convenient and it keeps pets out and so on, you can do row covers and all of that. Actually, the sunken beds here, bioswales, are what work really well. And then we can channel that, especially if there's a grade change, and putting those on contour or lower on slope, then the water can run into those beds, and it just gets to be absorbed and saturate into the soil. Mhm. Yeah.
Love that. So it's working with nature and not against it, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah, which is what our food system is. I mean, back, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, we food was more important. Food was not just, you're right, going to a grocery store, picking something up, bringing it home and shoving it in your mouth.
Mhm.
It was a whole process. You had to plant the seeds, you had to, you're right, go hunting, or you raised an animal or whatever it might be. There was more of a connection to food. And I personally, fundamentally, would love to see people back to those connections as well.
Uh-huh.
Having the relationship, knowing your farmer, growing it yourself. I think everyone should have a
Mhm.
garden. Everyone, even if you live in a high-rise building,
Yep.
everyone should have a garden. What's your thoughts on that?
Can. I mean, that's the other thing. I worked for a number of years developing these, what I called outside the box gardens, because I felt the same way. Like, even if you're in a high rise and you have a deck or a windowsill, it's still possible to have a relationship with soil and with plants and with seeds, and whether it's in some, simple pot or some sort of, interestingly designed container. So container gardening is great. And that's another thing. I don't know if you noticed this, but a lot of my clients are really afraid. They're afraid to try gardening. I think there's this cultural kind of lens that is about perfection and getting it right and doing it, like over the top, especially the first time. Well, nothing is ever the same. Even if you're growing the same variety of tomato in the same place, every year is different. The way that tomato is going to grow, the way it's going to germinate is different. And so I try to ask people to loosen up a little bit and just experiment. Like, it's all an experiment, and it's as much about failing, so-called failing, and experimenting. And a lot of it's about observing. So if we have something in our windowsill, or we have a box, a container or a bed, we're like we've been talking about, we're going to trip over going to the door, you see it. And then there's this relationship with, like, oh, there's the squash blossom. Oh, how many days later is this squash growing? When does it germinate? When do the peas flower? When are we going to have fruit? How do we harvest that? How do the plants do when we harvest, when we don't harvest? Which plants do we want to let go to seed? But a lot of it is just like relaxing around, um, how do I get back into relationship, my body in relationship with earth body? And it's refamiliarizing, because I think that we have it in us genetically. It's just like a generation or so lost, like we forgot. And so how do we take these baby steps to remember what that feels like again, you know?
Hey friends, on Dawn's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil covered, chicken loving, freedom chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. For sure, absolutely, and that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and part of why you're doing, I'm sure, what you're doing is to reconnect that back again, is to help families connect back with their food. And I know even on my farm, like, I had good years of this and bad years for that. It depended on the weather, it depended on rainfall, it depended on, how
Mhm,
much we even could get in there and pull the weeds. And so I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, we're not here for perfection.
mhm,
We're here for functionality and getting the food to grow and produce and having us something. So I never worried about a fully manicured yard. I worried about, like, how is
mhm,
that plant doing? Does it get the nutrients? Does it get the sunshine? Does it get the water? We're
mhm.
there for food production, not for, you know, um, perfection and prettiness and things like that. What's your thoughts on that? Like, my garden was not without weeds, and weeds are green manure anyway, so they add nutrients.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I think anything that's so highly manicured and sterilized is usually not as healthy anyway, because, like you're saying, whether it's a weed or mixing in the herbs and the flowers, everything all together, confusing pests. And here, the more densely covered our gardens are, the more densely planted, then the more they hold water and the more they cool themselves. And also, like, some of the healthiest gardens are the most chaotic looking, right? They're like a buzz with life. And there is something also satisfying about, like, these nice rows of the same crop. So I think it can be both, but anything that is like too tight and too monocrop feeling typically isn't as healthy anyway. So that's another thing to try to um, sort of shift people's perceptions about what is good, was a good garden, was a bad garden. And some of it, like one of my favorite permaculture practitioners here, his method is he's got his bed, his veggie bed, and he takes all the seeds together and he broadcasts them. And where they land and how they grow is up to them. And I think that's beautiful. It's like the one straw revolution, the Fuqua concept of nature knows best and trust nature. So there's that.
That's fascinating. So you put all your seeds into one big bag and you just throw it on, and what happens, happens, and what doesn't happen, doesn't happen.
Mm.
Fascinating. Have you
Yeah,
tried that method?
I've done it with some types of plants, like when I do different kinds of cover crops, or if I'm going to do native grasses and things like that, more so. I might also do it with, say, cutting greens. So I might mix all the different kinds of greens together and let them be in a bed. But here, like if I'm doing starts, like tomatoes or squash, things like that, those are typically I've got starts, so those aren't seeds. But I am pretty loose. I experiment because, like we were talking about, it changes every year how things are doing, how they're going to grow, and then I usually try to save seeds. So I'll have like my favorite kind of, cantaloupe or whatever, and plant those intentionally where I think they're going to do best. Like you're saying, like a microclimate where it's hot. So I have a little more intention with mine in terms of placement, but I pretty much let them do their thing. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Hmm.
Interesting, fascinating. Yeah, and that's just it. It's connecting people back to food. I love how you were talking too about like when you went hunting and then you'd come home and then did you go outside and pick some things for the meal and then just make a full meal together like with your community? Like can you tell me a bit more about that? What that looks like? And you were talking about the bones and all of
Yeah.
those things. Can you tell me a little bit more about that process? That sounds really community minded and just fun.
It is fun. And it is like, it's usually pretty spontaneous because, of course, when I go hunting, I don't know if I'm going to come home with an animal. But, for example, one time there was a guest in town and I had hunted, well, I don't know, I think I had turkey and maybe grouse and elk. And I said, well, let's have a dinner party, 10 people or whatever over. And usually what I'll do, because a lot of times people like to come and participate, people will come over and see, well, wow, this is what that animal looks like, or if the bones are still in the body. And then we think about, well, what we're going to make. And so we'll work together. And then, yeah, go to the garden, like, is there spinach? Is there peas or squash, whatever? And then sometimes even before that, like, last year, I brought home this beautiful bull elk, and he was, magnificent with his antlers. And so I wanted to bring him his head, his whole full head into the house. And I do this a lot. Like I have the bones of the animals all hanging along the portal eaves. I have the turkey skulls on the shelves. I have the quail feet all over. I have deer toes everywhere in the house because I think they're just magnificently beautiful. They're like these sculptural um, um, installation art pieces, and the genius of the animal body is always a marvel to me. So if we have the whole, like if I bring in a hindquarter of an elk with a hoof and the shank still with the hide on it, sometimes people want to come and like learn how to cut meat. And so we'll cut meat together, and then my mom will come, she's got her vacuum sealer, and we'll wrap meat. And then people have this whole um new understanding of what that looks like. Here's the body, and this is how we break it down into food. And then usually, we'll eat something right on the spot. We might grind the meat and make a burger, or just slice off some bits of the tenderloin and slap it in the skillet with butter. And so a lot of it is very immediate, and it's not fancy. It's as close to the original body, the original element, whether it's a beat or a backstrap. We keep it as close to that original form and taste as possible. Yeah.
So it's just natural. And you know what? I think that's what we need to get back to. Never mind those inside aisles of a grocery store. We need to get back to
Yeah.
doing just this.
Yeah.
Knowing your food, knowing where your food comes from.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. This is just me. So you're a woman and you go out hunting by yourself?
Well, I didn't always, and I didn't start hunting till I was about 40, and it was in direct complement to growing food. So this man I was starting to see, he had been raised his whole life hunting. He's from North Dakota, and I thought, well, why can't I go hunting? I mean, my family, men in my family hunted. I grew up in Alaska. I worked at a hunting lodge. I used to flesh animals, butcher animals. So I had a relationship with hunting, but not as the hunter. It was as if women weren't allowed. Not that that was explicitly spoken, but it was just what I saw. There weren't many women or any hunting, and so I asked, hey, would you take me? And so we went on an elk hunt, and that was my first hunt, and I just was completely uh, taken and enamored, and it became just this way of living. So also as complement to my food, like getting now, I don't want to buy any meat. I just want to harvest my own meat. Um, and then after a few years hunting it together, I realized, I actually want to go by myself because I don't want to be aware of someone else with me. Like I don't want to have to filter what I'm feeling, or if I want to go this way because I want to track that way, or I have a sense, oh, they're going to be over there. I just wanted to be freely and fully in my own voice, in my own instinct, and go that way. And I also, going back to the male thing, and nothing against the men, but I was wondering, well, if they can hunt by themselves and pack out an elk, well, why can't I? And at least I want to try. I want to know if I can. So the more I hunted alone, the more I wanted to hunt alone, and it's my happy place. It's my place I can just be fully free. Hmm.
I love that, and so that just makes you extra, extra connected just to what you're doing, the process, and it's probably a sense of like accomplishment and I really like that and bring it home and then cook it for your family and just raw and natural. That's amazing.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's like, I mean, I feel like you probably witnessed this so much, even with a child picking one berry, pick one strawberry from the plant, pull one carrot. There is something that happens in that moment of realizing this, way of being with that plant, and then putting that in the mouth. I just think there's this whole discovery and this aha that happens. It's transformational, and not to sound dramatic, but I believe it is. And I don't think it's something that is necessarily easy to talk about, but I do believe that it is a universal feeling. I've never seen anybody go, oh God, I wish I had never done that. I wish I'd never learned that. I wish I'd never had food close, that I knew. I did have someone come for dinner once, and it was a deer I was serving, and I had his skull boiled out, and he was just a small deer with small antlers. And I had that. A lot of times I'll have the parts of the animal on the table that we're going to eat. Not bloody, but still are there. And this one person, she said, I can't eat the deer because I can see him here and I don't want to meet my meat. So she very clearly did not want to know. If she hadn't seen the skull, maybe she would have eaten it. I don't know. But that was interesting. Some people, are sort of squeamish, I guess I would say that way. And that's okay.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're not all the same, like that's for sure. I think that's the part about doing what I'm doing as well that I love the most is that hearing and my one of my favorite stories is the mom saying, and my daughter grew a carrot and she pulled the carrot out of the soil and she was telling the people that came over for a visit that day that she grew those carrots and those were carrots that were grown in her yard and
Mhm.
just the pride and the joy and just knowing and doing the step by step by step. And it teaches patience, it teaches, stewardship, it teaches there's so many great lessons in growing a garden
Mhm.
that the benefits outweigh the negatives. Well, I don't even know any negatives. Like the benefits outweigh everything, right? Because you're just producing food for yourself and the empowerment if you're able to produce food for yourself. Like it's a sovereignty thing, really. Like
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can help feed myself.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. And especially with as precarious as our food systems are, and what we all experienced, like in the pandemic, of scarcity in any form of any one particular thing, and how how reliant we are on these systems that are outside of us. And it's dangerous and it's risky to invest in something that is so out of our control and so far away. And you have one part of that system, like the transportation part of it or whatever, or disease, something happens and throws the whole system belly up, and we're at its mercy. So it just makes sense too. It's just a practical thing to do. Yeah.
Exactly, right? Because I sometimes say he who controls the food controls the people, right? But if we can take that back into our own communities, if you have too many zucchinis and I have too many tomatoes and they
Mhm,
have too much basil, boom, we if we share and work with one another, we've
mhm,
got a great pasta sauce, right? Or whatever it might be. Like I
yeah,
think that's where we need to get back to is just realizing that we need to take that responsibility back into our own hands and stop relying on us on a fragile system.
mhm,
I get
mhm,
really frustrated with the system, and
yeah,
the system is so big and the disconnection is so big that it's food is no longer like you said, we've been talking about community and things like that. Food is no longer like that. It's not about, you
mhm,
know, what I have and what you have and how we can work together. It's more, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to stand behind you in line. We're going to make a monetary exchange. And I'm not even going to talk to the person in front of me or behind me because what does it matter? Like,
it's
I
hard to
just,
have to.
y-
Yeah.
yucky.
Mhm. No, everything has become it feels so disconnected, individualized, dependent on, a device. There's like this intermediate thing that's in the way instead of having that direct relationship and yeah, I call it body to body, human body to earth body, like what we're learning in that way that's tactile. It's also for me, I feel like it's what I see, and of course it's all in the eyes of the beholder, but I feel like people do have this kind of remembering of their own intuition and their own instinct as we are animals. We just forgot. We've forgotten because of all of these so-called, industrialization, progress, modernization, contemporary, first world, whatever. The more of that there is, there's less remembering of what we have been animals much longer than we haven't. But it's just this sort of accelerated or expedited disconnect through, industrialization and technology and all that. So I do love seeing that, like you're saying, with the kids, but also with adults. It's like, oh, feeling something. It's almost like a resuscitation of an experience that had been buried, or lying dormant. And when that starts to become resuscitated and refreshed, there's this awakening that feels so vibrant and vital. And I do feel like people are hungry for it. They're craving it. And I don't know if you've noticed this in your work, but I feel like the demand for it is going through the roof. People want to have these experiences. They want real food. I mean, you see it everywhere. There's so many farm to table restaurants, so much more around locally grown food, so much more celebration of local farmers and also um, site specific, region specific type of food, like food sheds. What do we grow here? And what is of this place? I'm not going to grow a kumquat. So realizing actually what is the place based on what food is there. And that's really important to me too.
For sure. No, it's so truthful. Like I'm in grow zone 3 and I sometimes get people ask me like, "How do you grow oranges?" Well, I'll be brutally honest, I don't know how to grow oranges. I can grow vegetables because that's what I grew in my grow zone, but we didn't really grow a lot of fruit. We can do some strawberries and things, but yeah,
Mhm.
like it's the education and eating seasonally. That's something else I think that people don't realize is eating seasonally is really important. Your greens in the spring and your
Yeah.
body really craves that in the spring, your greens and your
Mhm.
things that you're pulling out of your garden in each season. And then as you get into winter,
Mhm.
it's getting colder, we're inside more, and then going into your squashes and your potatoes and your root vegetables and your storage items. Like,
Mhm.
I think eating seasonally is so important too, because naturally that's the way we were designed and created, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you couldn't go get whatever you wanted whenever you wanted. In fact, before there was domestic crops, of course, we were just wild harvesting, wild foraging, and that's all obviously based on what's available in what season. And that's something that is one of my pet peeves. You know, you go to a restaurant and they're going to charge, like, say, $55 for an entree or something, and a lot of what's on there has nothing to do with the season or the place. Like, if I go to a restaurant here in Santa Fe and they're serving, scallops with a tomato or something in the middle of winter, I mean, no, neither of those things are relevant here. They don't make any sense. It's just this presentation and this idea of what's good food, but to me, it's actually it's meaningless if it's that. And it's also harmful because there's the carbon footprint, there's the extraction from somewhere else and bringing it here. And then there's that missed opportunity of educating people about what is here and when. So,
For sure.
yeah, yeah.
I get frustrated when I go to restaurants when they say local or they say farm to table something. I'm always like, who's the farmer that grew that? Can you tell me what their name is? And can you tell me where their farm is? And what is that? And why are you serving? Up here in Canada, why are you serving asparagus in September? Like September is corn season, not asparagus season. Like
Yeah,
the whole the
yeah.
seasonality thing. Like I'm like, let's
Mhm.
just do what we're supposed to do in the area that we're in. Like we shouldn't have to have in Canada, especially, we shouldn't have to have strawberries year round. We shouldn't have to have asparagus year round. Like to me, that there's a bit of craziness in that.
There is.
Um,
Yeah,
Having said that, I do have a bit of a coffee addiction, so
yeah.
maybe that's the one place that I
Coffee,
would.
chocolate, coffee and chocolate.
Pardon?
Yep. Coffee and chocolate.
Yes. Yes, yes,
Big
exactly, right? So, I mean, there are treats, and I probably don't wanna live without my coffee or chocolate, but,
yeah.
there's a time and a place for everything.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and that also, I don't want to be a person in my life that is the righteous one. Like, I don't know what's right for everybody. I know, like, hunting is a controversial subject because of the animals and people like having open hearts to animals, of course, and also to, like, maybe we shouldn't be killing wild animals. We can produce the domestic food sources. And then there's a whole subject of guns and what that brings up. And I believe, like, instead of saying, well, my way is your way or should be. I don't believe that. In fact, I'm just asking questions and learning. And I want to be in conversation about, even if someone is like so polar opposite of me, I want to know what they're feeling and what their experiences are and what their views are and why. Because I just feel like the more and more we dig our heels in on opposing sides, the more disconnected and actually literally violent toward each other that we are. And I don't think it has to be that way. So I think, especially around food, it is universal. To me, it's our most intimate act. Food in our own bodies and food in someone else's body. It's the most intimate act. And that is the most fertile and rich opportunity to ask questions and say, and listen. How can we listen to someone else's point of view? And people have been really angry at me and come at me, not understanding what I'm doing, killing animals. And it's fine. I mean, I understand that there's that feeling. And right now, this is what I'm experimenting with and trying. And this so far is right for me. I don't know if it will always be, but we were hunters much longer than we haven't been. That doesn't mean this current context isn't the same as it was during hunter and gathering times, but still there's something to be learned from it, I think.
I agree with you 100%, and that's just it. So I'm big on freedom. I'm big on, like,
Mhm.
um, freedom of choice, freedom of bodily autonomy, freedom of making choices. But fundamentally, I've had this conversation with several people. If you believe in freedom, you actually have to believe in freedom for all. So just because I'm okay with it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that you have to be okay with it. And I have to be okay with your decision to not eat meat.
Mhm.
You have to be okay with my decision to eat meat, and or whatever it might be, whatever the issue is. And that's where we just need to have more conversations and build more bridges and
Mhm.
find the places that we are the same so that we can just meet one another and just
Mhm.
realize that, all of our blood is red. We are just all
Mhm.
the same. We're all human beings. We're
Mhm.
all just trying to navigate it all together, and we're just trying to,
Mhm.
live life. And I think that's what we need more of in society. And I like the parallel with that with food, because yeah, it can be a bit of a like bit of a tricky issue sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it can be loaded for sure. And, like you say, I was just talking with someone else about this morning. Like, um, I guess I don't need someone to even understand me. And I think sometimes when we're in conversation with someone who's like, let's just say on the other side, we keep talking or talking louder or being more forceful, trying to get them to understand. Well, actually, I don't think they have to agree or understand, but I would like there to be mutual respect. I can say, wow, I really hear that. I respect that. And I don't understand it at all. And I actually don't agree with it at all, but good for you. And thanks for sharing. It's okay. We don't do well with conflict and with not agreeing. It's almost like we have to take it and run with it and then, believe in the divide, like actually reinforce and believe in that. And I don't think we have room for it. We don't have, our earth needs us. Our earth needs us to be united, really, as all. And I'm not saying that to be like Pollyanna, but I just don't think we can afford more division. I don't think we can afford it.
I
So,
agree with it. I'm so tired of it. Where I was just 5 minutes or half an hour ago, I was out for lunch with one of my good friends, and she, like her and I, we are so polar opposite. We are very, very opposite in many, many ways, and we just have great conversations, and we make each other think, and it's always respectful and kind, and it's beautiful when you can meet someone who's different than you and go,
mhm,
yeah, this
mhm,
is great. And breaking bread together. I mean,
mhm,
that's part of it, right? Is when you sit down and have a conversation with someone, like go for a meal,
mhm,
it's relaxed, it's nice, I just think that's when you break bread with someone and you just back to our fundamental basic rudimentary need is food,
mhm.
it just is a way to build those bridges too.
Yeah. I mean, it's so much a part of our culture. It's ritual in so many ways, whether it's religious ritual, literally taking communion, or celebration, any kind of rite of passage, a wedding, a graduation, I mean, you name it. It's the way we celebrate. It's always an opportunity, and it's always a source of both sustenance and beauty. And I don't know anybody I mean, some people maybe have less of a priority around food or less of a practice, so to speak, but still, I don't know. I feel like everybody does. They feel it when it's real. They feel it when there's
Mhm.
real flavor too.
Are you sitting on a farm or homestead that could be making you real money? Tired of guessing on how to market your products? I owned a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I ran 2 farm to table stores. I had 30 people on payroll. I brought in $2.5 million in gross revenue in 2020, selling farm goods directly to customers. Now I teach farmers and homesteaders how to make money and save money off the land they already have. Whether you're selling eggs, beef, produce, baked goods, or anything in between, if you want to get into direct marketing and grow your sales, I'm the girl for you. Stop leaving money on the table and start putting it into your bank account. Join me at Dawn's Dirt Business Coaching and let's make your farm pay you back. Well, and I don't know anybody that doesn't eat, right? Like
You know.
we all eat.
Yeah.
I had a customer this summer. So I raised chickens this summer and I did eggs. And there's
Mhm,
this one woman and she came to me and she grilled me, question after question after question. And
mhm,
I pulled up videos on my phone and pictures and what did you do with your chickens? And what did you do with your chickens? And she said, well, I've not ate eggs. I've been vegan for many, many years. I've not ate eggs, but I want to try some of your eggs. And so we built the relationship around like, the trust factor with the farming and things like that. And she ate my eggs. And later that summer, I
mhm.
found out she's pregnant. And so there
What?
was a reason behind
Yeah.
her
Well,
wanting to change her viewpoint. And I'm feeling slightly emotional. The
mhm,
fact that she trusted me with that huge
mhm,
responsibility of what did you do with your animal, Dawn, so
mhm.
that I can feed my I'm just getting over I'm getting a
Yeah.
little emotional here, but like
No.
that she trusted me with her baby to
Mhm.
feed her baby that was like
Yeah,
that's massive. Like
it is.
yeah,
It
it's
is.
cool.
And that awareness, and that was a risk for her to change her way of believing the way she was behaving around food. And in a way, like making that conscious choice. Well, if I'm going to eat something that's this source of protein, it's going to be a source that I believe in and trust. Like you say, I've had that experience with friends who are vegetarian. And one friend who's been vegetarian for, most of his adult life. And he said, well, Christy, um, I want to try elk. Like, I think I could try it as jerky. But that's the only meat I'll try is what, if you have something you want to offer, I'll try it. And my daughter she wasn't eating much meat. She would only eat the meat that I brought home when she was eating meat. And it was a very clear choice about knowing, where it came from and that I cared. So it's the caring, like you're saying, it's part of it is like, what's the chicken eating? Is it free range or whatever? But it's also your particular care and connection. I think that people want, they want to feel that it feels better.
For
Yeah.
sure. Absolutely. Like, and it's important, right, to know your farmer, to know where, like, but it's back to that connection. It's the whole connection. And I think over the last 50 years, for sure, we've lost that connection. And I love that there is a huge movement now back to that connection, back to homesteading, back to small farming, back to gardening, back to even, I'm doing farm to table sales and teaching people how to do that. But back to connecting and making those connections from the big system. And I've been saying it for a long time here now too. We, the people, have the power to change our worlds. And so it's just one
Mhm.
farmer, one gardener, one consumer, one food interaction at a time.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think part of it too, I don't know if you find this, but I feel like it's related also to our relationship to our own bodies and this kind of disassociation with the physical body as an animal being that is, dirty or smelly or imperfect or flawed or whatever. And it's almost like the more we sterilize ourselves with being clean or only being indoors, then I feel like that sterility transfers and translates to everything else. So it's like, ooh, the carrot's dirty. We think everything's like so clean and uniform and perfect. That idea of perfection, going back to like imperfect gardens, like same with an apple, unblemished produce. It's like setting that expectation for ourselves. And I don't know about you, but as a woman, I feel that pressure in our culture that there's this expectation of flawlessness and agelessness. Like we are terrified of death and we're terrified of something that is like, quote, ugly or imperfect. And I don't know, I feel like even through food, that's a way to push back and say, well, wait a minute, what is perfection? What is this funny carrot that's all twisted, or what's this imperfect squash that came out, lopsided or whatever? And actually what's true and what's authentic and what has real flavor, including ourselves as people, you know?
Yeah. Well, and what's needed and what's necessary. We have these like consumerism and billboards and things that say you have to be this shape and size. You all have to do this. I'll be really honest with you. I was like, oh, my hair is a little whatever on this podcast, but I'm like,
Well,
forget it. If you don't like it, don't look. This is what I look like. This is what I do. Like
well,
we're all we. You're right. We just are people. We are human beings, and the aesthetics of everything. We need to kind of get over that and get past that, and just get back to the relationship and the
mhm.
all the things that are more important than, is my
Well,
hair a little fuzzy in the podcast here,
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, it's a huge opportunity, and I love what I hear of what you're doing, teaching people not only like the growing part of it, but then how to make a livelihood because I know that's huge. Like so many people who are going back to the land, it's very difficult to make money unless you're like this huge industrial ag producer. And so, how do we do that? And I think how it's done on a small scale is those local connections, like these local people that want to support that, and we can actually ask for put the price tag on it that is reflection of what it actually costs, and people will pay for that. They want to. They want to know where it comes from, or like calling and saying, "Hey, when's your next, crop of whatever it is ready? I'll come pick it up." And I think that like the economy part of it is really important too. Yeah.
For sure. I've reflected in the last 2 years because I sold my large vegetable farm 2 years ago. And I've reflected in the last couple years on, different things that have happened over the 16 years that I was farming, vegetable farming. And we started off headed for the industrial side of vegetable production. And what we soon realized was we were just too small in the industry to make a go of that. And so I'm very proud to say, hindsight looking backwards now, that I still kept that farm going for many, many, many years, longer than it what probably should have in that big industrial side. And how I did that and how I achieved that was
Mhm.
going to farmers markets and building that community. And when people were so upset in 2020 over the food and the toilet paper wars and what's going on, and people were
Mhm.
coming to me and saying, "You've got food, right?" And I'd say, "Yes, I've got food. Like, don't worry, I'll take care of you." Like, it was very, very, very community minded. And it's really honestly how I saved my farm and farmed for many, many years was through relationship. It's
Yeah.
the hardest part about selling it, actually.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's powerful.
So if you had any advice for someone that just wanted to get into growing a garden this year, what would you say to them? Like what would you tell a first-time person that, maybe lived in a apartment building or just had a backyard that's had nothing done to it?
Mhm.
What advice would you give to someone like that?
I guess I would say, just start small, be realistic. Because sometimes people think they have to have the garden that they saw in the magazine or at their neighbors or whatever. And I would say, don't set yourself up for failure because the scale of the endeavor matters. And I think the scale has to be appropriately reflective of the lifestyle. And people don't have time. A lot of people are working full-time jobs. So be realistic. And it might be the thing that I think is the easiest to start with is a container gardening. Experiment, and you can also move the pots around. Like, where are they going to grow? You can cluster them. They could be beautiful. You could have a theme with shape, size, style, color of container gardens, clusters, long, skinny, rectangular ones, whatever. I would say start with that. Start with something simple. Talk to your local grower. Find out what varieties work best. Grow what you love. Even if you just grow one thing, just grow that. And then,
Mhm,
from that and just play. Mostly play.
mhm.
Mostly don't take it too seriously. Get your senses in there and be a kid again.
For sure. And get your hands in the soil and get them dirty
Mhm.
and then when you get that carrot, you're right, pull it out, wipe it on your pants and eat it because a little dirt didn't hurt anyone.
Yep, yep, taste real food for sure.
Yeah, I love it.
Mhm,
I love it. This has
mhm.
been a really cool conversation.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for being here today.
thanks for having me. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us, just on the way out here, actually, tell us about your books. Tell us about what you got coming up and what you do, because you're an author as well. So can you tell
Yeah,
us about your books?
you bet. Thanks for asking. The first book, Moonlight Elk: One Woman's Hunt for Food and Freedom, was published by University of New Mexico Press, and that came out in September 2024. And it is a series of stories, like braided essays that go together as a collective whole. And those stories explore a lot of what we talked about today: relationship to place, relationship to food, relationship to each other, and then also kind of who am I as a woman in the world, all through the lens of hunting. The next book is called Salmon Dreaming: Coming Home to Alaska, and it looks at my relationship to home, my home in Alaska, my childhood home, and what it means to go home. It also looks at the salmon way of navigating and finding home using their bodies as their navigational tool, compared to my stepfather, who was a geologist in Alaska and he was a map maker. So looking at the human oriented scientific way of wayfinding using tools compared to the instinctual animal way. And that book is also published by University of New Mexico Press, and that'll be out in September 27. And then I have a third book coming out also by UNM Press that's about water in the West and basically like undamming rivers in the West, and that'll be out in 2029.
Mm, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So people can find those. So where can people find you? Where can people find your book? How can people connect with you?
They can email me, look at my website. It's christiegreen.net, CHRISTIE green, like the color.net. And the book is available anywhere. It's distributed by Simon and Schuster. You can go to UNM Press, University of New Mexico Press, and buy it. It's also an audiobook. I did the narration on the audiobook. So anywhere you buy books, whether it's locally or on the online platforms, same with audiobooks, anywhere, or podcasts like on Spotify, anywhere like that, the audiobook is available. So it's pretty accessible anywhere. I just did a podcast 2 weeks ago with a woman in Australia. She had the book, and that was fabulous. jealous, like to talk to someone that far away. So yeah, moonlight elk is everywhere. Go for it.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for speaking with me. Thanks for sharing your experiences, your wealth of knowledge, and really appreciate your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot from you.
This is fun.